Welcome everyone to our student loan repayment workshop. We're really grateful to everyone for joining us today. We have a lot of information to cover, so I welcome you to get your computer, your phone, whatever device you're using ready to go. We are going to be getting started in just one moment. There is a Q&A function on Zoom that folks are welcome to use if you have questions for us. We have a lot of folks signed up for today, so I ask that folks please be patient with us as we try and go through your questions and tackle as many as we can, although we cannot guarantee to answer all of them. Um, I think with that, because there is a lot of things to cover today, we're going to jump right in. So let's take a look at the next slide here. So if you don't know who we are Student Debt Crisis Center. We are a national advocacy organization with 2 million supporters calling for fundamental reforms to student loan policies and an end to the student debt crisis. Today, I'm joined by Natalia Abrams and Sabrina Ashley Sarah from our team. My name's Sabrina Calazans. I'm the executive director here, and we're really grateful to have you all join us today. So let's jump right in. So a few quick reminders for you is please use the Q&A function to ask your questions. We are going to do our best to answer as many as possible. A recording of this workshop is also going to be provided via email 24 hours later to anyone who registered. And any information shared on today's clinic pertains to the current guidelines and rules that are in place today. So today is May 15th, so this is subject to the information that is available today, but this information is also subject to change. So we encourage folks to always look and see what the latest guidance is because it is subject to change. All right, so to jump right in, before we get into our basics of student loans and everything like that, I do want to provide some overview of what is going on in the federal landscape. So we've brought this up in a couple webinars, but we'll go through it quickly here with you all again, that there have been changes at the Department of Education and multiple executive orders that have been issued in the past few months. So there was an executive order signed to dismantle the Department of Education. There was an executive order signed to limit access to public service loan forgiveness. We will get into that later. There is a negotiated rulemaking process, which is a regulatory process that is in progress on public service loan forgiveness and income-driven repayment plans. And there was a 50% reduction in workforce at the Department of Education. So there's a lot of moving parts right now. The most important thing that you need to know is that none of these executive orders or moving parts are necessarily going to impact folks in this current moment. So essentially, to dismantle ED, there would need to be a congressional authorization to limit access to public service loan forgiveness. They've got this negotiated rulemaking process in progress, and so this will not be impacting you in this current moment. There's also been a comment made about the student loan portfolio moving over to the Small Business Administration. The same thing applies here. This would require an act of Congress in order for the loan portfolio to move over to the Small Business Administration. Now, some really important updates that are critical for many folks that are joining us today is when it comes to income-driven repayment plans. We just saw a report and some information on processing numbers. And so we have seen that there have been massive delays on processing with IDR. There was a set period of time where IDR plan processing was paused, but we've seen that prior to that, there's been less than 4% of applications submitted that have actually been processed. So there are nearly 2 million applications that have not been processed at this time for income-driven repayment applications. If you're someone who has submitted a PSLF buyback application, also less than 3% of those applications have been processed as well. So if you are waiting for an application, there's a very good chance that your application is in the queue, and we will get to that shortly about what that means and next steps for that. And then it's also really important to note that for folks looking to apply for income-driven repayment plans, if you were hoping to apply for SAVE, that is no longer on the IDR application, so you can't get into that plan anymore. And if you had previously applied for the lowest monthly payment option on the IDR application, that is no longer an option. So now instead of selecting and saying, to my servicer, I want to be placed in the payment plan that offers the lowest monthly payment, you have to actually select a payment plan. So you'd have to select pay, IBR, or ICR as options for plans that you want to enroll in. And we'll cover what those plans are shortly. Some other updates that we want to provide for you are tied to reconciliation, which is a budgetary process that is currently in motion right now. And this is actually one of the most terrifying proposals that we've seen so far. And this would result in cuts of up to $350 billion to the Department of Education. Um, a lot of there are a lot of moving parts and a lot of pieces within this reconciliation proposal. And so some of these things include limiting federal aid and grant amounts, including Pell Grants. I believe that it would be about 2/3 of recipients of Pell Grants would be at stake of losing that funding. And again, also flagging that this mostly would impact new folks moving forward. Um, but not everyone. There are aspects that do apply to current borrowers. This reconciliation proposal would eliminate subsidized loans entirely, Parent Plus loans, and Grad Plus loans. We would also see the creation of a new standard plan, which would be 10 to 25 years based on your loan balance. This would only be available to new borrowers. And then there would be this introduction of this repayment assistant program or repayment assistant plan RAP, which is a 30-year program. This would be available to both new and current borrowers. They would eliminate $0 payments that would no longer exist. So if you're unemployed, it doesn't matter. You would have a minimum of a $10 payment. Once you enroll in the RAP plan, you cannot change plans once you're in it. So that is really important to know. We've seen that the plan is less generous for a lot of folks. Um, it just it is not a great option here for folks. And so that is very frustrating to see. A few other things that were proposed through reconciliation are to eliminate IDR plans. So we would see ICR pay and the newest, most generous version of IBR disappear as well, limiting PSLF eligibility. So if you're a medical or dental resident, you would not qualify for PSLF during residency. And if you are enrolled in the SAFE plan and it goes away, you would be moved into the IBR plan if you qualify for it. So again, these are really disheartening updates that we are seeing, and it's why we work so hard to advocate for borrowers and we encourage folks to take action with us. And so Sabrina Ashley from our team is going to drop in the chat some actions that you can take right now. We're asking folks to sign petitions, send a letter to your Congress members, make a phone call to your Congress members. They need to hear from us. And telling them that we oppose these changes at the Department of Education. We oppose these changes being proposed through reconciliation and that this would harm millions of borrowers. We can see payments skyrocket for so many folks. We would estimate an additional $4,800 in payments per year for borrowers. And so that is alarming, especially in a time where we're in an economic situation that is uncertain for so many people. So I encourage folks to take action right now and join us as we advocate for 45 million individuals and families across the country. And with that, I'm going to toss it over to Sabrina Ashley so that we can get to the workshop portion of today. Sabrina Ashley.
Awesome. Thank you, Sabrina. And maybe you can drop those other couple of links in there since we transitioned. But welcome everyone again. Today's workshop, again, as of May 15th, 2025, is going to focus on loan types, repayment plans, getting out of default, loan forgiveness options. We will have some time for Q&A at the end. This information provided today is based on current guidance and is subject to change. And a reminder for folks that we are not financial counselors or attorneys. We are simply advocates and experts that are here to help you guys out. So right now, as Sabrina was going over, there are a lot of attacks against the student loan system and student loan borrowers. So how can we protect ourselves with these recent changes to the system? There is a there are a few things that you can do. One of them is to know who your student loan servicer is and to have access to your account on their website. We are going to go over your account on studentaid.gov, but you should also have an account on your student loan servicer website. You should be saving any communications, documentation that you've received from your servicer, and go ahead and print, download, screenshot, save, however you want to save that for yourself. Any information that details how many PSLF credits you have, how many IDR payments you've made, and anything else that you think is important to your account. You can also consider enrolling in IBR, income-based repayment, if you qualify for it. We'll go over a few of those eligibility requirements later on. But IBR is written into law, so it's technically the most secure IDR plan out there. And we want to emphasize that we honestly do not know what will happen to IDR plans, but that's why we're here today. We're going to continue to communicate any changes with you. And we will, again, go over some of those eligibility requirements for IBR, but the best way to find out if you qualify for that plan is to try calling your loan servicer. So with that, we're going to get into student loan types and servicers. And on this next slide, we have a chart for you all. So we are not going to be going over private loans today. We are only going to be going over federal student loans. And you can see that we have three buckets of federal loans: direct loans, Perkins loans, and FFELP loans. So direct loans, there are plenty of loans under that list: direct subsidized, direct unsubsidized, graduate plus, parent plus, and direct consolidation loans. These are all newer loans. They're the loans that are going to be the most eligible for different programs and repayment plans without you having to do anything to them, like consolidate them. A Perkins loan is a loan that's held by your institution. These loans are no longer given out. So if you do have older loans, we'll go over how to find out if you have a Perkins loan, but you might have one. And then a FFELP loan, or a Federal Family Education Loan Program loan, is also an older type of loan. It's no longer given out. And we can see here that we have subsidized Stafford, unsubsidized Stafford, FFELP Plus, and FFELP consolidation loans under that category. So along with your type of loan, you are going to have a federal student loan servicer. So we have broken this down for you. If you have a direct loan, your servicer might be Ed Financial, CRI, Nelnet, Aidvantage, or Mohila. If you have a FFEL and Perkins loan, you might have Heartland, Sloan Servicing, AES, or you might also have Aidvantage and Mohila. So those two, Aidvantage and Mohila, service both direct loans and FFEL and Perkins loans. And then if you're not sure if you have a federal student loan or a private student loan, we did list here some common holders for private loans. So these are going to be your banks like Discover, Wells Fargo, PNC, or private companies, refinancing companies like Navient, Credible, Earnest, SoFi, Sallie Mae, Higher Education Servicing Corporation, or College Ave. And then, of course, this confusing part here is that Mohila also holds some private loans. So if you are looking through your studentaid.gov account, which we're going to go over in the next couple of slides, and you don't see a loan here, but you know that it's held by one of these companies, then you might have a private loan. All right, so how to use studentaid.gov. Studentaid.gov is where you're going to go for any and all questions about your federal student loans, any programs that are available to you, including public service loan forgiveness or income-driven repayment plans, which we will go over in depth today. And you want to make sure that you type in www.studentaid.gov into your browser. or bookmark it, somehow have that direct link. Do not Google it. Unfortunately, there are scams out there, people who are asking for money to solve your student loan issues. You should never be paying to do that. You're already paying off your student loans. We don't want to pay more. So when you come to studentaid.gov, you are going to reach this login page. You can enter your email and password, create an account if you don't have one. And if you are having trouble resetting your password or it's telling you that your account doesn't exist, um, you can always call this number on the screen here, 1-800-433-3243 for assistance, or you can head to this link at the bottom here, studentaid.gov/fsa-id/help/recover-account. And they will be able to help you recover your account, reset your password, whatever issues you're having there. So once you get into your studentaid.gov dashboard or account, you'll come to your dashboard, and that's your home page. So you can see that there's tons of information here. You can head to your profile in the top right corner to navigate to different pages. You can see your upcoming payments, your servicers, any websites for your servicers will be linked here as well. But we're going to focus on that view details button with that red arrow. Once you click on that button, you are going to come to a further breakdown of your loans. So this top screenshot here, you can see that it lists out that it has 11 loans, and then there's a view breakdown button. We're going to just keep digging into this breakdown. So we'll hit view breakdown, and then you will be taken to a further breakdown of your loans. This bottom screenshot here, it will list out your loans according to your servicers. And again, we're going to hit that smaller blue button that says View Loans. And we'll come to this next screenshot. And you can see that now our loans are listed out even more. So these are the individual loans under Mohila for this account. So you can see that one is a subsidized loan, one is an unsubsidized loan. You can see the loan status. So this person is in forbearance, but they're also in the Saving on a Valuable Education Plan or SAVE. So that might be quite a few of you. I saw several people asking about SAVE already in the Q&A. So this might be what your account looks like here. Then you can see other details like interest rate, your loan balance, next payment date, all that good stuff. All right, so now that you have looked at your type of loan, now that you have seen where all of your loan information is, we can look into student loan repayment options. And we are going to go over the standard plan. So first is the 10-year standard repayment plan. This is what all borrowers are placed into initially when you enter repayment. It's a 10-year repayment plan with fixed monthly payments. This plan applies to everyone who has unconsolidated loans or folks with consolidated loans with a balance less than $7,500. This plan is good for folks who are looking to make a dent in your debt, if you're worried about that interest accruing or you just want to get out of the system quickly. This is or could be the plan for you if you can afford it. But there are definitely other more affordable options for folks, which we will get into with the IDR plans. And on this next slide, we have another version of the standard repayment plan, the 30-year plan. So this is for folks who have consolidated loans. Your repayment period will be up to 30 years, but it is based on your loan balance. So we've posted this screenshot from studentaid.gov here, and it kind of breaks down the time frame for repayment and your loan balance. So with the standard plan, you will be in repayment until you pay off that entire balance. There's no loan forgiveness aspect to this plan, you pay it back 100%. As I said, there are more affordable options, which are listed out in that chart that we will go to now. So there are alternative plans. This is graduated repayment, extended repayment, and extended graduated repayment. These plans, like the standard plan, do not have a forgiveness aspect. They have typically lower payments at first, and after a while they increase. And we'll go over a couple of those as well. And then we have the income-driven repayment plans, which are income contingent repayment, or ICR, income-based repayment, which we mentioned earlier, IBR. There's the old plan and a new plan. And then there's pay as you earn, or the pay plan. And then of course there is the save plan that still technically does exist, but we'll just repeat that you can no longer apply for that. And it is on pause right now. And we'll just note here that IBR and pay have certain eligibility requirements. So not everyone is eligible for those plans. All right, so I will pass it back to Sabrina to go over income-driven repayment plans.
Thank you, Sabrina Ashley. All right, let's jump into IDR plans over here. So, what are some of the benefits of income-driven repayment plans? So, IDR plans, the monthly payments are calculated as a percentage of discretionary income based on your income and family size, not the loan amount. So, for folks who have very high balances and lower incomes, this is a great option for you. The payments can often be more affordable than the standard plan. This is especially helpful for folks with lower incomes, those who may have lost a job, or who have decreased incomes. Um, if at any point your income changes, you can recertify that there's been a change to your income and lock in a lower monthly payment. So if you have, as if you're currently unemployed and you secure a $0 payment, and within the next few months you get a job and your income goes up, you actually have that $0 payment locked in for 12 months. So that is one benefit that you have right there. This is also especially helpful to prevent folks from falling into delinquency and default. Again, the payments are locked in for a year. Now, a downside to IDR plans in comparison to the standard plan is that it does extend the loan repayment period to 20 to 25 years in comparison to the 10-year plan, not the 30-year standard, though. So, something to think about. Okay. IDR forgiveness. So for every monthly payment that you make while you're enrolled in an IDR plan, you receive an IDR credit. So if you're working towards repayment for 20 years and you've never missed a payment, you should have 240 credits. And if you have been working with graduate loans or Parent Plus loans, the repayment period is 25 years. You would need 300 credits. Again, it does depend on your repayment plan and loan type. Once you reach that necessary threshold, so the 240 or the 300 credits, you would essentially become eligible for IDR forgiveness. When you're eligible, they would need to process the forgiveness, and once that is done, the remaining balance of your loans are forgiven. It is important to note that periods of deferment, forbearance, and default do not count towards IDR forgiveness, including this current save forbearance. That's really important for folks to know. And also, due to the SAVE litigation, if you are at the 240 credits or the 300 and you are eligible for IDR forgiveness, you would need to enroll in the IBR plan specifically because that is the only plan that is processing loan discharge for folks who are eligible for IDR forgiveness. I know it's a little bit wonky, it's a little bit tricky, so if you have questions, you can reach out to us, but you need to be enrolled in IBR to have your loans discharged through IDR forgiveness right now. And all right, so income verification or recertification is where you're providing that updated income information and family size information. That's something that you should be doing every 11 months. We used to say the 12-month mark because it is technically once every 12 months. However, you do need to get it in prior, at least 10 days prior to the 12-month mark. So we recommend every 11 months. Write it down, create a notification for yourself so that you never miss this because there could be a major capitalizing event and you'll see your balance balloon that way. Um, this can be completed by filling out the IDR application online or through a paper form. This is what it looks like on the website. Right now, no one is required to recertify until February 2026 at the earliest. So there's no action required from you at this time. Everyone is protected until February 2026. So if your wages, as I was saying earlier, if your wages decrease or you become unemployed, you can recertify your lower income at any time to secure lower monthly payments. That's really important for folks to know. All right. So, what are the types of income-driven repayment plans? I saw this question in the chat, so I wanted to address it. IDR is the umbrella term. In all of these different plans, ICR, IBR, Pay, and Save, they are types of this IDR plan. So, what do we have here? We have the Income Contingent Repayment Plan, ICR. This is applicable to all. Anyone can enroll in ICR. It is the only option available for Parent Plus loans when it comes to IDR plans. It looks at 20% of your discretionary income over a 25-year repayment period. For IBR, which I was mentioning earlier, of one of the things proposed during reconciliation is that folks who are currently in SAVE would be moved to IBR. But then after I said that IBR is one of the plans that is at risk of going away, I want to flag that there are two types of IBR plans. So the first one is the older version of IBR, and it's actually a less generous version of IBR. And this is the one that they would put folks into. So this plan, as Sabrina Ashley said earlier, is not available to all borrowers. There is a hardship requirement for folks to be eligible for it. It's available to borrowers with loans before July 1st, 2014, and it looks at 15% over 25 years. So if there was a change through reconciliation where SAVE goes away, they would potentially put folks into this IBR plan, this older version. Now, the newer version that they're trying to get rid of is for new borrowers as of July 1st, 2014. It's a lower payment than that original IBR, and it looks at 10% over a 20-year repayment period. Another plan that exists is the pay-as-you-earn plan. This is for newer borrowers as of October 2007 who received a direct loan after October 2011. It looks at 10% over 20 years. You can find all of this information at studentaid.gov as well. You can always call your servicer if you have questions about the individual plans as well and what your payment looks like. That's really important for folks to know. And the SAVE plan, we have it on here because it is a type of IDR plan. However, right now it's currently paused due to litigation and no one can apply for the plan. All right. In addition to the original standard plan and the IDR plans, there are also these alternative repayment plans. Now, these are essentially variations of the standard plan, meaning that there is no forgiveness portion to these alternative plans. You're essentially paying off the entire balance of the loan over a longer period of time. So there are three types of alternative repayment plans. There is the extended repayment plan. All loans are eligible except for for Perkins loans. You would need to consolidate them to be eligible. These are fixed payments over 25 years, and only folks with balances higher than 30,000 are eligible for the plan. Then there's a graduated repayment plan, same loan eligibility as the extended. However, the main difference here is that the payments start low and they do increase every 2 years. On the next slide, when we get to it, I'm going to show you an example of what that could look like. And the repayment timeline depends on your loan type and your balance. So if you have FFEL or direct consolidation loans, it could be between 10 to 30 years of repayment, and all other loan types are 10 years of repayment. Now, the extended graduated repayment plan is a combination of the two plans, meaning the loan eligibility is the same. The repayment timeline is going to be 25 years, and the payments are going to increase every 2 years. And it's only available to folks with balances higher than $30,000 who are eligible for this plan. So, the next slide here, let me just go over what a graduated repayment plan or the extended graduated plan could look like. So again, it's based on your loan balance. So if you have less than $7,500, the repayment period would be 10 years. If it's between 7,500 and 10, it would be 12, and so on and so forth, capping out at 30 years. Now, if you look at the difference between the first and the last payment that you'd make over the period of time, it is a big jump. So let's say you got into this plan and you had a $30,000 balance. Your first payment would be $192, but at the end of your repayment period, it would be $575. So it's really important for folks to know that those payments are increasing and increasing significantly over the course of your repayment progress. So that's just really important to know before enrolling in those plans. Next slide. And I just wanted to go over Parent Plus loans because this is really important. And unfortunately, Parent Plus loans are more limited when it comes to repayment plan options. And so, as I said earlier, ICR, income contingent repayment, is the only income driven repayment plan accessible to Parent Plus loans. And you do need to consolidate those Parent Plus loans. You can also consolidate a single Parent Plus loan into a direct consolidation loan in order to qualify for ICR. It has to be consolidated. You're also you also have access to alternative plans if you have Parent Plus loans. So the extended graduated, and on ICR, the repayment period is 25 years, meaning you need to have made 300 payments for your remaining balance to be forgiven. So those are the repayment plan options for Parent Plus loans. Now, I just want to go over the loan simulator very quickly for folks because with all of these proposed changes and everything going on, it is critical that everyone at least knows what your monthly payment will look like on the standard plan. The other information might not be so accurate, so I do encourage you to call your servicer and request that information. But let's look at the simulator to see what this looks like. So, okay, so you can go to studentaid.gov. The loan simulator is there right on that toolbar at the top. Click on loan repayment, click on loan simulator. And then on the next slide, we would get to this page. We recommend that you click on this first option. I want to find the best student loan repayment strategy. That is the one that we work with the most with borrowers, and so we found it to be the most helpful. All right, so these are some of the things that they're going to ask you. These are one of the most important things. But prior to this, they're going to ask you a series of scenarios that apply to you. So it will ask you, are you currently employed? Have you filed taxes in the last 2 years? Are you married? Do you have dependents? They're going to ask you a couple of questions and you check off all that apply. There's also a none apply to me option. So just select what applies to you. Once you go through that and you indicate what your income is, if you select that, what your if you're married, the state that you live in, all of that information, once you've confirmed that, you will be brought to this page here on the left that is going to ask you to confirm your loan situation. Here is where all of your loans will appear. You'll want to click on all of them, and then it will bring you to the next page here. It will ask, do you want to see options that maintain eligibility for PSLF? If you're working towards public service loan forgiveness, select yes, because that way it will only show you plans that are eligible for public service loan forgiveness. If you're not working towards PSLF, you can just select no and skip it. At that point, it will bring you to the final screen that will show you it's going to ask you what your primary repayment goal is. We recommend that folks select here, have a low monthly payment, so that it will show you first what your lowest payment plan option is. Once you select that, then we should be brought to the page and it will then show you your results. It's going to show your recommended repayment plan. In this case here was pay, and this person is working towards public service loan forgiveness. So it will indicate that to you. It will tell you what the monthly payment plan is. But again, this is not 100% accurate. So I do recommend folks go, you would scroll down and then you'd look at the page on the right here, and it has the view and compare all plans option. Once you click on that, it would show you all of the other plans. So it would show you what your payment would look like on the standard plan. It would show you what your payment would look like across anything that you're eligible for. So make sure that you jot that information down just in case that these plans go away so that you're aware of what your payment would be if they placed you in standard. That's really important for folks to know right now in this current moment. All right, so as we said, we recommend calling your servicer and asking what IDR plans am I eligible for and what are the estimated monthly payments. If you're working towards PSLF, make sure that you state that so that they can tell you the plans that count. Again, recommend folks go through the loan simulator and just see what those calculations look like at this current time to prepare for any potential changes that may come down the line. All right, let's get into the SAFE plan and what is going on. So there are the current lawsuits against the SAFE plan, and this is creating a big impact on borrowers. So because the cases are ongoing, the recent court order is preventing the department from offering the SAFE plan during this litigation. So as I said earlier, it's been removed from all IDR applications and folks can no longer apply for the plan. Everyone who is enrolled in SAVE has been placed into an administrative forbearance, a SAVE administrative forbearance, because the servicers can't bill folks properly at this time. So borrowers are not required to make payments and interest will not accrue during this time. It is important to note that interest is being displayed differently depending on the servicer. So we've heard of cases where a servicer like Advantage might be showing the interest accumulating on your account right now, but they've said that they would be removing that interest retroactively at some point once the forbearance ends, while others, like let's say Mohila, won't show that interest accrual. They just will let it accrue, but it won't show on your account or on your bill. It's just not there. So every servicer displays the interest accrual differently, but at the end of the day, it all boils down to that interest should not be accruing for anyone during this forbearance. And as I said earlier, because of the SAVE litigation, if you're working towards IDR forgiveness and you're at the 20 to 25-year mark, you need to switch into IBR if you're eligible to receive IDR forgiveness because of the lawsuit tying up forgiveness through pay and ICR. If you have questions about that, you can email our team and we can talk through that a little bit more and clarify things for you. So, will I receive IDR or PSLF credits during the SAVE forbearance? The answer to that, unfortunately, is no. IDR and PSLF credits are not counting during this forbearance. If you are eligible for, if you have essentially reached 120 credits during the time that you've been in the SAVE forbearance, you would be eligible for the PSLF buyback program. We're going to talk about that program shortly, but that is an option for folks to look into. If you would like to start receiving monthly credits towards PSLF and IDR, you may want to consider enrolling in another income-driven repayment plan like income-based repayment, ICR, or pay. Now, borrowers who enroll in another IDR plan will be placed into a processing forbearance at this time. So if you're trying to switch over from SAVE into IBR, you should be placed into a processing forbearance by your servicer as they essentially process your application and transfer you into the new plan. It's worth noting that while you are in this processing forbearance of up to 60 days, you do get PSLF credits during that time. However, interest does start accruing again. So those are things that folks should keep in mind as you are moving out of the SAVE plan and into another one. Now, this is another frequently asked question that I did see in the chat and something that we see a lot through email. Should I get out of SAVE and apply for another IDR plan? So we've broken it down and you should consider getting out of SAVE if you want to continue making progress on PSLF credits, meaning you're going to go back into repayment and get those credits. If you want to continue receiving and making progress towards IDR credits, resuming your payments. If you are close to PSLF or IDR forgiveness, especially, we do recommend that you get out of the SAVE plan. If you're working towards IDR forgiveness, you should switch into the IBR plan specifically. For PSLF, it does not matter which IDR plan you are enrolled in. Your loan discharge can be processed no matter what. Now, you should consider staying enrolled in the SAVE plan if you don't mind the fact that you're not receiving any PSLF or IDR credits, if you would like to remain in an interest-free forbearance, and if you would benefit from not having to make a payment. If it benefits you to not have to make a $300 or higher payment, a month, like I know for a lot of folks during this time, especially, it's helpful to have that extra money in your pocket for as long as you can. So we encourage folks, you can stick around and save until the plan goes away. There's no right answer. This is a personal decision. It's up to you on what you'd like to do at this time. All right, so quickly just breaking down because I've mentioned the word forbearance. There are going to be other forbearances that we discuss shortly as well. There is the traditional forbearance, which is typically used when someone cannot afford their payments. You need to opt into this forbearance, apply for it. You can apply via mail, online, or on the phone with your servicer. It is not automatic. Interest will accrue during this time, and the time spent in a traditional forbearance does not count towards IDR PSLF forgiveness. In the SAVE administrative forbearance, which I just covered, it's an involuntary forbearance, meaning that all 8 million folks that were enrolled in SAVE were placed into it. You did not have to apply for the forbearance. No payments are required at this time. Interest is not accruing, and you will not, unfortunately, receive PSLF or IDR credits for time spent in here. If you want to get out of the SAVE administrative forbearance, you can apply for another plan, which would essentially place you into a processing forbearance. This is for folks who are applying for another IDR plan. Your servicer needs about up to 60 days to process your application. It can take longer, but the processing forbearance is up to 60 days, and you are supposed to be placed into it automatically. If not, you can call your servicer and request to be placed into it because you have a right to be placed into it. The time spent in a processing forbearance will count towards PSLF credits, and interest also does accrue during the processing forbearance. All right, so how can I apply for an IDR plan? To apply, you can go online or you can use a paper application. We do recommend the online application. If you want to fill out the paper form, you can also mail it in or fill it out and then re-upload it to your servicer's website and submit it that way. You will need to provide income documentation like a recent tax return, a W-2, or a pay stub. And it's also really important to note that processing times are extremely delayed and can take upwards of 60 days to process. For a lot of folks, it's been more than that. It's been months. Um, so only some servicers have stated that they've resumed IDR application processing. There was a pause on IDR application processing. So we're seeing that start to pick back up, but it is still very backlogged. So we recommend that if you applied prior to January 2025 and your application is still pending, you should fill out a new application. And you should also be placed into a processing forbearance once you do submit the application. If not, you should call your servicer and demand to be placed into one. If in the past few days you've applied for or tried to apply for the pay as you earn plan, but you haven't had any luck doing so online, we've heard that the servicers and FSA are giving folks a really hard time. We recommend trying to call your servicer and seeing if you can get enrolled in the plan over the phone, or we recommend filling out a paper application and mailing it in. We don't know why that's happening. We're going to connect with our lawyer friends and see if there's any explanation, see if there's been any updates there. But from what we've heard as early as a few hours ago, folks have been struggling to apply for the pay plan. So just be mindful of that if you are switching IDR plans. So before applying for an IDR plan, you should have your permanent and or mailing address, family size information, employment information, income documentation, and even if you've opted into the IRS integration in the past, everyone is being required to provide income documentation. So make sure that you have all of this on hand before applying. This is this IDR tracker, something that we've brought up in the past. If you've logged into studentaid.gov recently and you haven't seen this on your dashboard anymore, we are hearing reports and have seen that many folks no longer are seeing this tracker on their dashboard. That's why it's so important for people to screenshot, take photos, and print everything that you can on your studentaid.gov account as well as your individual servicer account. Make sure that you document PSLF credits, make sure you document your current balance. All of that is critical because this information is being taken off of studentaid.gov. It's not to alarm you, but it's to make sure that you have that information handy in case you need to call your servicer or whatever the case may be. Make sure that you're documenting all of your information. Now, a really important question. What if I can't afford my payments? So our steps are check to see if you're eligible for an IDR plan and can secure a lower monthly payment. If you can't and you've explored all of those options, these forbearances and deferments are temporary emergency options that are available to you to essentially pause payments. So a forbearance will pause your payments or allow you to temporarily make smaller payments. You will not be making progress towards forgiveness or paying back your loan during this traditional forbearance. It's a pause, essentially. It's really important to know that interest does accrue and significantly during a forbearance. You can choose to pay the interest during a forbearance, but for most folks, they're struggling financially, so it doesn't make sense to. So that's absolutely fine. A forbearance in comparison to a deferment is more wide ranging. So there's not specific situations that you need to indicate in order to be eligible for forbearance. Most folks are eligible for it. Now, a deferment is slightly different in which it does temporarily pause payments and interest does accrue. However, there are specific eligibility requirements and forms that folks must fill out in order to qualify for a deferment. So, if you're going through cancer treatment, economic hardship, military service, rehabilitation training, or unemployment deferment, you can fill out the specific application at studentaid.gov and request a deferment. And it's worth noting that for a forbearance, at least, I'm not sure exactly on the deferment, but you have up to 36 months of eligibility for a forbearance. And once you've used up to 36 months, um, you can't extend that forbearance any longer. So just be mindful of that for folks who are applying for these options. Now, what happens if I don't make payments? The first day past due, your payment is considered delinquent, and the loan will remain delinquent until the missed payments are made up, or you can also apply for a deferment or forbearance. Once that's granted, the delinquent period would be brought back into good standing and your loans are back into good standing. You're all set. Now, if you continue to not make payments for 90 days and you're past due, that's when delinquency is reported on your credit. So you could see your credit score tank all of a sudden because you are being reported to credit bureaus. Now, if you continue to not make payments up to 9 months or 270 days, at that point, your loans would be considered in default. So the consequences of default include tax refunds being withheld, wage and social security garnishments up to 15%. There's a lot of negative consequences that we'll talk about very shortly that come with being in default, but it's worth noting that there are ways to get out of default, like loan rehabilitation or loan consolidation to get you out of that loan status. So on the next slide here, it's important to note that default collections did resume on May 5th. So if you are in default, you may have received an email from the Department of Education letting you know that you're in default and that collections would be resuming. If you did get this email, or even if you didn't get the email and you're in default, please reach out to our team so that we can talk through your options so that we can get your loans back into good standing, see if we can figure out some next steps to help you out. Um, again, if you are in default, there's loan rehabilitation, which is essentially you're connecting with your servicer to determine an affordable monthly payment amount. It could be as little as $5. The both of you would be working together to figure that out, but essentially you would make 9 monthly payments over the course of 10 months. And then once that's done, the collections would stop and your loans would be brought back into good standing. It's worth noting that it's only a one-time opportunity through loan rehabilitation. Now, loan consolidation is the process of converting or combining your loans into a direct consolidation loan, which essentially creates a new loan. So, by creating a new loan, your old defaulted loans are now out of the picture and you're brought back into good standing. However, in order to qualify, you must either agree to repay using an income driven repayment plan, or you can make 3 full on time payments before consolidating. It's also worth noting that you can consolidate a single loan as long as it's not already a direct consolidation loan. So there are options available for folks who are in default. I believe the next slide. Are just some of the consequences of being in default. So you would be reported to credit bureaus for 7.5 years. The collection and legal fees would be added up to 40% of the total loan amount. There would be garnishments, um, un- just some unnecessary harassment by these collection agencies. You would become ineligible for financial aid or federal aid, and repayment plans. Your entire loan amount is going to be due in full and you can be sued. And there would be ineligibility for some armed forces, law enforcement, or public service jobs. So there are some real consequences to default, but there's no shame. If you're in default, please let us know and we can try and figure out a way to get you out of it. Now, with that, I'm going to toss it over to Natalia to go over public service loan forgiveness. Natalia?
Th- Thank you, Sabrina. And as Sabrina mentioned a couple times at the top of the hour, there is a lot to cover. I'm going to try to go quickly. We may go a few minutes over, but just bear with us. So public service loan forgiveness. This is a program that started in October 1st of 2007. That is when you can start counting your public service work. You need to make 120 monthly on-time payments or 10 years of payments and then you need to make sure to add more time for the application approval process. So not until, and we'll go over this again, not until you receive the check will your loans actually, not until you receive the check can you stop paying. You need to be working in your public service job in order to get the application approved, and there can be quite some extra months for the approval time. Payments are cumulative, not consecutive. This means that you can go in and out of your public service job as long as you have a total of 120 credits or that 10 years of time. At the end of that 10 years, all remaining debt will be tax-free. And there are some criteria, a checklist to see if you qualify. Do you have a direct loan? Does your employer qualify? And don't worry, we'll show you some examples on this. Are you in a qualifying repayment plan? All of the IDR payments Sabrina just talked about counts. You make sure to document your employment time. We do see discrepancies with credit counts from borrowers and servicers, so it's always important to document and fill out the PSLF form. And apply after 120 qualifying payments, although each year it's wise to do your employer verification check to make sure that your credits are correct. So one of the best ways to maximize your benefit is to combine income-driven repayment and public service loan forgiveness together. Pay as little as possible for the 10 years and have the most amount. If you work or plan to work for a PSLF employer while you're in repayment, the strategy is to get the most out of it. You could feasibly pay as little as $0 a month and have all of it forgiven, although that's not quite in practice what we see all the time, but borrowers do have very low payments based on their income and not on their loan amount. So this is what does qualify for public service loan forgiveness. All of the direct loan program that's subsidized, unsubsidized, parent plus loans if the parent is working in the job, not their child that they took the loans out for, and the direct consolidation loans. That for employers, it's all levels of government, 501c3 nonprofits, and other critical public service, firefighters, if you work for a nonprofit hospital, state, local government, as we mentioned before. And then in terms of repayment plans, we have the 10-year standard, the ICR plan, the pay-as-you-earn plan, all of the IBR plans, both new IBR and old IBR. And unfortunately, SAVE no longer counts since the SAVE forbearance. However, time spent in SAVE up until the lawsuit last year, which was early June, that time does count. So you may have some months that qualified during the SAVE program. What does not qualify are those older FFELP loans unless you consolidate them into the direct loan program. Perkins loans do not count, defaulted loans unless they are brought back into good standing, and then private loans never will count. In terms of employers, government contractors do not count. So even if you work for a government job or a nonprofit job, but you're a contractor for that on a W-9 or 1099, that will not count. If you work at the labor union, as opposed to, you can be a member of a labor union, but if you work at the labor union at the state or federal level, that will not count. And 501c4 nonprofit and political groups do not count. In addition, on the repayment plans, the alternative plans, the 30-year standard plan does not count for the consolidated. Like if you've consolidated and extended to a 30-year, that will not count as a qualifying repayment plan. And time in deferment and forbearance, including in-school deferment, does not count. Now, I mentioned this, and I believe Sabrina did as well, but we have seen a lot of processing delays. Public service loan forgiveness still very much exists, and we're still seeing processing happen, but the delays are taking much longer than we anticipated, much longer than they were in the previous administration. We know, we speak to so many borrowers that are frustrated, that are continuing to have to work in their job until they receive their cancellation. You know, we are with you. This is completely wrong, but unfortunately, there's not. You know, other than complaining to your local, to your AG, make it to your Congress people, there is not much you can do to change this at the moment. And so if you're looking to get the forgiveness, make sure to stay in that job, public service job until your loans have been discharged. We also recommend using the PSLF help tool annually, and I'm sure my colleagues are dropping that in the chat to know exactly how many credits you have. Borrowers who enroll in another income-driven repayment plan, you should always be placed in a processing forbearance. Time spent in that processing forbearance counts towards public service loan forgiveness, even though interest is still accrued. All right, I know we get a lot of questions about the buyback program. As Sabrina mentioned, a very small percentage of buyback applications have been received and managed. It's about 2,000, and that doesn't mean 2,000 people have successfully done buyback. It just means that they've gotten a response to it. We have been told that this is running again, but like everything else, there are a ton of delays with it. But what is buyback? It's that you can buy back certain months of your payment history to make them into qualifying public service loan forgiveness credits. You can buy back months that didn't count as qualifying payments because you were ineligible because of deferment or forbearance, but the time in school does not count. Here's the kicker, though, is that the buyback opportunity is if you've already reached 120 months of qualifying employment, meaning you have been working in your public service job for 10 years, you have been in a student loan repayment for 10 years, and there's like a few months that are, you know, why we say to check your credits, that there's discrepancy. This is when you would want to look towards the buyback. Times that you were spent in forbearance or deferment that didn't count. and result in forgiveness under PSLF or expanded temporary expanded PSLF. Time in the save plan. So we haven't gotten as much clarity as we'd like on this from the department, but some borrowers may be eligible to buy back the months during that you've lost since last June with the save injunction. If you have reached that 120 months, or you think you would have with the save plan, by all means, we suggest you try to do the buyback program. We just don't want to give any false hope or promises, but it's absolutely worth it to try. You must submit a buyback request and make an extra payment of at least as much as what you would have owed under the IDR plans, what you were paying on save prior to the injunction and forbearance. And then you may be able to qualify for public service loan forgiveness through the buyback program. Okay, so that is public service loan forgiveness. We bring up consolidation after that in case you're just hearing about it for the first time and you need to consolidate an older loan. Also, Sabrina mentioned consolidation for those folks that are looking at default and want to create a new loan. Consolidation is basically converting your new loans into a direct loan, or combining all of your loans into a single loan, although typically we see people with older loans convert into a direct loan. You're creating a new date, a new loan, and therefore a new payoff date. It can take 30 to 60 days. Again, you see processing delays here too. You can consolidate a single loan. So as you saw, consolidated parent plus loans are what counts for public service loan forgiveness. So you can consolidate that one parent plus loan and convert it into a direct consolidation loan and then enroll in public service loan forgiveness. What you do need to have is a single FFELP, those older loans, to consolidate. Or if you're consolidating an existing direct loan consolidation, you must have at least one other loan you're combining with. That's not the same as it was for parents. Please note, due to current regulations, if you consolidate right now, you may erase some or all of your repayment history for IDR programs and or public service loan forgiveness progress by creating a new loan. If you joined us a year, in years prior, you may have heard us saying it's the safest time to consolidate. That is not the case right now. So be very wary with loan consolidation. However, if you've never obtained any credits to public service loan forgiveness or IDR, or you're facing default, this option may be for you. And you apply the same way you apply for income-driven repayment programs. You can go online and apply online. You can fill out a paper form, and processing times are delayed. We're going to quickly go over these forms of other forms of cancellation. I know we're a little bit over time and we want to get to some of the frequently asked questions, but there is total and permanent disability. This is total and permanent disability, so not just if you're on disability, but it provides full forgiveness on your student loans if you are unable to work. You must provide documentation from either the VA, Social Security Administration, or a medical professional. You cannot be working for a 3-year monitor and for 3 years, and a monitoring period will apply. Processing was delayed and now has resumed as we're getting out of spring. There is also borrower defense. If you may be eligible if you took out loans from a school, a federal loan from a school that misled you or engaged in misconduct. If you are on borrower defense right now, you may see that you have a forbearance that is extending through 2026. We also have closed school discharge. This is for people who went to those same type of schools as borrower defense, but they filed for relief within 180 days after they withdrew, or excuse me, if the school has closed within 180 days after you graduated or withdrew from the program. So that is for a more recent school closing, which we have not seen in the last few years, which is why folks often use borrower defense. There is still teacher loan forgiveness. So if you teach full time for 5 complete and consecutive, this is a little different than public service loan forgiveness. So it's consecutive, not cumulative. academic years in a low-income school or education service agency, you could be eligible for up to 17,500. So it's 5,000 or 17,500 in forgiveness, depending on the subject and level that you teach. The service requirement is 5 years for teacher loan forgiveness. I'm not going to go through these, but the rest of them, but there are false certification eligibility, somebody taking out a loan in your name illegally, Perkins loans forgiveness, the school discharging it and discharged, and then an unpaid refund, and then death discharge. Your federal loans do die with you. This is not something that you would pass on to your family. With all of this confusion and more to come through what's going on with the reconciliation bill, we're seeing more and more debt relief scams pop up. These bait and switch scams that are promising immediate loan forgiveness, deadlines approaching, and basically they are offering student debt help for a fee. Everything we've talked about today, including our services, are completely free of charge to student loan borrowers. You do not need to pay for student debt help. Be wary of scams. When in doubt, go to studentaid.gov. If you have questions or see a scam that you're questioning, or see an ad that you're questioning, more than likely it's a scam, but you can always email us at Student Debt Crisis Center to ask. So issues or complaints. There is a federal student aid feedback center. However, there are not many employees there any longer to tackle or handle complaints. You can submit a complaint there. We highly suggest contacting your local, state and federal representatives. Contact your state attorney general. Their servicer website has chat and messaging functions and to help with issues. And people have found some success writing their senators, congressmen, and attorney generals with their student debt situation. Definitely complaints about how it's bad, treatment from the servicer, bad treatment from federal financial student aid. Make sure to let your representatives know. Okay, so here's what you can do right now. Know who your loan servicer is. Make sure you have access to your account on their website. Save any communications, documentation if you've received from your servicer. Print, download, and screenshot, and save any information on your credits, anything that you see on studentaid.gov in case there's changes. Consider enrolling now into income-based repayment if you qualify for it. As Sabrina mentioned, this is written into law. This is here to stay at the moment, so you can use that student navigator to see if you qualify or call your loan servicer. And Sabrina, I think I'll throw it back to you for the volunteer opportunity.
Perfect. Thanks, Natalia. So we often hear from folks who want to get more involved with us, who want to take action, or who simply are interested in receiving the resources that we are providing and sharing with folks. So we have a volunteer opportunity for folks who would like to receive the resources and learn a little bit more. So we are going to be hosting a 1-hour-long training that folks who sign up to be a volunteer can join. We're also going to be sharing resources that you can distribute to your loved ones, your friends, colleagues, networks, or whoever you'd like to. So it's as simple as posting something on social media, sending out an email, sharing resources at a local event, college campus, community space, house of worship, wherever it is that you'd like to send that information. So we are looking for volunteers to help spread information and reach as many people as possible, given all of the chaos and misinformation spreading online. And so if you would like to sign up, Sabrina Ashley is going to drop the link in the chat here for folks. Fill out that Google form, let us know, and then we will work to schedule that training. If you have any questions about the volunteer opportunity, feel free to reach out to us. We'd love to work alongside you, and we're really excited to spread the word and get the information out to as many folks as possible. So take a moment to fill that out when you get a chance. We're really excited to see folks join us and to share these resources. Now, if you want to continue getting updates from us at SDCC, you can sign up for our mailing list at studentdebtcrisis.org to sign up. And you can also find us on social media at debtcrisis.org on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and Blue Sky. be sure to find us there. We do a lot of posts. I believe we have some FAQs here for folks as well. We've been working diligently here in this Q&A. We've gotten it down to just a few more questions left. So we want to cover some of the frequently asked questions that we've been seeing from you and in our inboxes. So what can folks do if their loans are delinquent, meaning your loans are past due, but not more than 9 months past due? You can request a forbearance or a deferment if you are in a delinquent status on your loans, and that would help bring your loans back into good standing, or you can make payments on whatever it is past due to bring your loans back into good standing. Now, folks that are in default currently, as we said before, there are options like loan rehabilitation, which is making those 10 or those 9 payments over 10 months to bring your loans back into good standing and stop collections. And there's also the process of loan consolidation to create a new loan and bring your loans back into good standing. If you're pursuing public service loan forgiveness, but you're currently in the safe forbearance, what can you do to resume PSLF progress? We saw this question a bunch of times in the Q&A here. Especially if you're close to 120, we highly recommend you get out of the safe forbearance, get into another repayment plan like IBR if you qualify, or ICR or pay, and continue making that progress. Once you hit that 120 credit mark, you can go through the help tool, like Natalia said. It's going to have a question of, have you reached 120 credits? And you select that, indicate that you are. And if you have, let's say, 115 PSLF credits, but you would have been at 120 without the save forbearance, you can do the same thing, go through the PSLF help tool, indicate you're at 120, and then go ahead and fill out the PSLF buyback application. There are options available to you. You're not stuck in the save forbearance. You can get out of it and continue making progress so that you get your loans discharged as soon as possible. When can we expect IDR processing to resume? We have seen some of the servicers resume processing. However, as we said earlier, there are major backlogs. So if you applied months ago for an IDR plan and your application still has not been processed, submit it again. We do recommend resubmitting. If you applied for a consolidation, however, and your application is still not processed, be very careful because, as Natalia said, the current regulations could result in your progress being erased, whether that's for IDR progress or PSLF progress. We don't want anyone to have to start over from scratch here in this case. And so just be mindful of that, that if you do resubmit a consolidation application, that would be the case here for you. So these are most of the questions we've been seeing in the Q&A and also in our inboxes. I welcome folks to email our team, as Sabrina Ashley dropped here in the chat. Email us at info@studentdebtcrisis.org. We will do our best to get back to you in a timely manner and try and answer as many questions as we can. We really appreciate everyone's patience here with us tonight to try and tackle all of these really complex topics. I know this is really overwhelming and concerning for so many of you, but that's why we all have to work together to advocate and fight for one another so that we continue to have these programs in place. And at the end of the day, we're not going to stop fighting for debt to be canceled. So let's keep fighting together. Let's keep doing what we can. Again, I appreciate everyone for joining us tonight. We really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to inform yourself more on student loans and your rights here. So with that, again, I want to thank you. I want to thank Natalia and Sabrina Ashley for joining me tonight. I hope everyone has a wonderful night, and we will see you again next month. Take care, everyone.